One of my favorite things about living on the water is watching the afternoon thunderstorms roll through here during the summer. And today it reminded me of a story I want to share. Twice this week I had two different buyers reach out to me who have been looking for a waterfront property on the Conway Chain for quite some time, and they are both expressing some real frustration as far as finding the right property at the right price and whatnot. And it has been a tough year, I would say, in terms of finding good properties out there on the market right now. They're on the water. You know, some things here in Florida are extremely predictable, just like the thunderstorms here in the afternoon. One of the things that is not predictable is the supply of good lakefront inventory that's going to hit the market. And when they do hit, it can be extremely frustrating for buyers that have been looking for some time for just that right lakefront property. So I had two buyers call out to me. They had both been looking for over 6 months. They were running into a dead end, and they were expressing some real frustration. And that's not unusual on waterfront property for a lot of reasons. First of all, we just have the limited inventory thing, the same thing that drives the value on these properties. And you have owners typically that when they are in their lakefront property, they don't tend to leave. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to a waterfront owner that said they're taking me out of here in a pine box. And that's just how these properties work. And it also goes to show kind of the connection that people have to these properties. So that kind of sets the stage for why it can be so hard to find what seems like a great waterfront property when you're ready to pull the trigger. And the most common mistake I find are people that are just waiting and watching what's coming across on the MLS, on the Zillow, Realtor, Redfin, all the different sources out there. And then they'll see something pop up that went under contract the same day. A lot of these properties will sell without even ever hitting the market. And it can just lead to more frustration if you're a buyer. And I've seen that for a long time. I've experienced it myself. And there's no easy answer for it. You know, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've got a lot of people I know, both friends, past clients, and whatnot, that are on these waterfront properties. And one of the first things that I do when I'm working with a new waterfront buyer is I'll start working the phone, pick up the old school, pick up the phone, make phone calls. I tell people, this is still, despite all the technology, AI, internet, all the different algorithmic search tools out there, this is still a belly-to-belly business. And getting out there and having conversations is where some opportunity can reveal itself sometimes. Now, disclaimer, I do get phone calls and everybody wants to know about, hey Mike, do you have this secret, top secret list of off-market properties that I have available for them? And I'd be lying if I told you the answer to that was yes, but there are opportunities that present themselves. And on occasion, I've been able to connect a buyer with a waterfront property that was not on the market. This is not a silver bullet that works all the time, but it does speak, I think, to, if you are a buyer looking for something that's on the water, make sure you're working with somebody, whether it's me or somebody else that specializes in this, that's established and knows what's going on in these lakes. Because a lot of these properties move by word of mouth, and they don't necessarily hit the open market. And sometimes a phone call to whether it's owners on the lake, other agents who do a fair amount of business out there, can open up some doors and create some opportunity from time to time. And this week was a great example. One of these buyers that has been looking for quite some time, I started making a few phone calls, I sent out a few text messages, and I just located a friend of mine who is not ready to sell currently, didn't know anybody else, but he said, Mike, I'm putting my house on the market in about 2 months. And that's exactly the kind of thing that I'm looking for when I've got somebody, especially a buyer that has a pretty specific idea of what they're looking for. They've been looking for, whether it's a 3-car garage, and they want to have a western sunset exposure on the lake. They want to be on a specific chain of lakes or a specific lake. I can get very granular as to who I'll start reaching out to, and do some other tricks like go back and look at some properties that maybe were on the market in the last 2 years and didn't sell. Start reaching out to those owners. So there's a few things that we can do that really kind of expand the footprint of the search beyond what's actively showing up on the internet, so to speak. So it was interesting that both of these buyers were looking on the Conway Chain. They happened to be different price points, but they were both realistic price points. They both had a very clear idea of what they were seeking. But it's not just the Conway Chain where this happens. It can be the Winter Park Chain, Windermere, College Park Lakes, or a specific lake out there. And that's where each of these little sub-markets that we have really can behave differently. The supply can differ, the owner situations and whatnot can really be particular. This is, at the end of the day, still a relationship business. It's one of the things I love most about it. and sometimes we have to utilize those relationships along with all the other tools that are out there to help people find just the right property. You hear me say it all the time, Waterfront's different. And it is not like a typical home search, and it's one of the things I love about it. It's kind of has to operate at a little bit of a different level, makes it a lot more interesting, and it's something I love to do for my clients. And it speaks to the importance of not just setting up searches, set it and forget it sort of thing, but kind of having a real strategy in place. So if you happen to be searching, the first place to start, FloridaLakefront.com. You can search all the properties that are on the MLS out there. They're just true lakefront. And then if you want to go beyond that, feel free to reach out, give me a call, DM, text me. I'd love to hear from people out there. And in the meantime, I'm going to sit back and enjoy the rest of this storm as it comes across the lake. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye.